Hello guys, this is Abdul Muttalib Abubakar. In this video, I'm going to talk about 3D. I won't be talking about the history or technology behind 3D. I will be talking about the CGI aspect of 3D. This is because a lot of people want to go into 3D modeling or animation, but they don't know the slightest thing about 3D. And there's little information that talks about the very basic CGI aspect of 3D. By the way, CGI means computer generated imagery. This basically means using computer graphics to create or contribute to images in art, media, video games, and so on. CGI is also referred to as CG or visual effect. In this video, I'm going to talk about the differences between 2D and 3D, differences between 2D software and a 3D software, what is 3D modeling, and what a 3D model is. I'll try and explain the very basics and as simple as I can. A question I get asked a lot is what is 3D, or what's the difference between 2D and 3D. A lot of people, including those asking that question, know that 2D means 2 dimension and 3D means 3 dimension, but that alone doesn't provide you with any answer, and apart from the number 2 and 3, you can't tell the difference between the two. I'll begin with 2D. As we all know, the D means dimension. The simplest way I can think of explaining this is 2D basically means if you are going to measure an object, you have two sides only to measure, which are the height and the length. These sides are referred to as axes, which are the x-axis and the y-axis. The x-axis refers to the length of an object or the position of an object in the x-axis, and the y-axis refers to the height of an object or the position of an object in the y-axis. Just like how you can use your Google map to know your location or your coordinates, you can use the axis too to know the exact location of an object or coordinate. I'm going to explain that a little bit more later. 3D on the other hand has three axes, which are the x, y, and z axis, also referred to as length, height, and width. Width. Oh my god. Anyway, the third axis, which is the z axis, is what 2D doesn't have. This third axis refers to the width of an object. This is also referred to as depth. So a key difference between 2D and 3D is the z-axis, which indicates the width or depth of an object. So let's move on to the software part and I'll explain that a little more there, and then I'll show you some basic differences between a 2D software and a 3D software. For those of you that are familiar with a 2D application like Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, or even CorelDRAW, you know the kind of information this property tab provides, and if you don't, I'm going to try and explain it here. So in softwares like this, once you create a shape, you'll be provided with two informations: the height and the length of the shape, and then the position of the shape in either the x-axis or the y-axis. And if you look here, we have the x and y, which refers to the x-axis, and the y-axis. And if you recall, I said x refers to the length of an object or the position of an object in the x-axis, and y refers to the height of an object or the position of an object in the y-axis. So if I should slide this w here, which basically means wide or width, you can see that the shape is actually increasing and decreasing. And if I should slide the one for the h, you see that it's actually increasing and decreasing in height. And that's because this one correlates with the y-axis. So if I should slide the y, you see that the shape itself is actually moving. And then the x, of course, to also be moving in the x-axis. And the same applies in Adobe Illustrator. So when you click on any of the shapes you create, you see that you have your x-axis and the y-axis, and then the width and height. Now I know some of you might be thinking, well, if you add the bevel and extrude effect to any of these shapes, you will have a 3D look, which will look something like this. But even with this, if I click any of the shapes, I still have only x and y axis, no z axis, and that's because this is a 2D software and these shapes are in 2D. They just have the effect of looking 3D. And I'm explaining these things because they're going to be important when we start making when I start showing you differences between a 2D software and a 3D software. But before we proceed to that, let me just explain something. So in a 2D software, you have your basic shapes like the rectangle, ellipse, and polygon. which you use to make your design. In 3D, we don't refer to them as shapes, we refer to them as primitives, and that's what we call them, not shapes. So in a 2D software, where you have your square or your rectangle, in a 3D software, by the way, this is Cinema 4D, it's a 3D modeling and animation software. So in a 2D, you have your rectangle or square. In 3D, we refer to them as cube, not rectangle or square. In a 2D software, you have your circle. In a 3D software, we refer to them as sphere. In the 2D software, you have a triangle, and in the 3D software, we don't call them triangle, we call them pyramids. Right? Just like in our 2D software, after creating a shape, we're provided with some certain information about that shape. The same applies in 3D. After creating a shape in 3D, we're provided with some certain information about our primitives. And here you can see we have our x, y, and z axis on the position, and here we also have x, y, and z axis of the size. So if you recall, I said that the key difference, one of the key difference between 2D and 3D is the z axis, which is here. So here we have our y axis and we have our x axis, and this right here is the z axis, which is shown here for the position and then here for the size. So if I should eliminate this z axis here, this depth, our pyramid will become a triangle, just like we have it in this software here, just like we have it here. So I'm going to eliminate this z-axis and I'll show you what I mean, and you can also check the size from here and see how it's going to change. So you can see now it's at 0 for the z-axis, and it's no more a pyramid, it's a triangle, because that z-axis, the third axis, which is supposed to give it the width or depth, is no more there. It doesn't have any value, so it's going to be flat. But I can also increase it back to its 200, and you can see we have our depth again. So that's like the key difference between a 2D software and a 3D software. Another thing I want to mention is that in a 2D software, you can move your shapes up, down, left, and right only. In a 3D software, you can move it up, down, left, right, and then back and forth. That's for the z-axis, back and forth. You can also rotate it to any direction. Unlike in a 2D software, you can only rotate to, I think, this side. That's even after you have it looking like this, you can only, rotate it to only this angle, this position. So when working with a 2D software, we have our canvas or artboard or whatever, and that's what we work on. That's where we make our design. In a 3D, we call it viewport. This entire place here, we call it a viewport. And if I was to work in a 2D software, I can't actually rotate this artboard or canvas, but in a 3D software, I can actually rotate a viewport. You can see I can zoom in and out, and I can actually move it, the entire thing. Unlike in a 2D software, it's just simply flat because it's in 2D, and even if I want to move or rotate, it's only up and down, left and right, and then rotation to this side. Those are some of the basic differences between a 2D software and a 3D software. Now I'm going to talk about 3D modeling. So in 3D or 3D modeling, we have 3 modes of selection, which is the face, and that's right here. That's like the base of the cube. And then we have the edge, which is basically the edge of the cube, as you can see here. And then we have the vertex or point, which is at the end of every edge. So those are the three modes of selection that we have in the 3D software. 3D modeling basically means manipulating the face, edge, and points of a primitive to get the end result. This can basically mean like selecting an edge and then increasing it in the y-axis, or maybe just clicking on a face and deleting it. I'm going to show you a very practical example here of 3D modeling. So let's say I wanted to model a table, like a very simple basic table. I'm going to first work on the manipulate the size, right? And then I'll add some cuts to the primitive. And then I'll just select some certain areas of the face or polygon. And after doing that, I will increase the length. And here we have our very simple, nice looking table. So 3D modeling basically means manipulating any of these primitives you have here, whether it's a cube or a cone or a pyramid, manipulating them to get the end result of what you want. "3D model means representation of an object in a 3 dimension. That means whatever it is you are trying to represent or create must have the x, y, and the z axis. And this can be as something as a simple table like this, which is in 3D, or even one like this, which is a little more fancier, which is also in 3D. Or even something a little bit more complex. Yeah. So basically, when we talk about 3D model, it means showing or representing something in 3 dimensions, having x, y, and z axis. This is a work in progress, by the way. And that's it for this video. I hope you find it interesting, and hopefully you'll start making some animation or 3D models. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I intend on making more videos like this. Thanks for watching.